Hello and welcome to News Central Now. I am Adebola Adeduba. The headlines. African leaders pledge to tackle root causes of terrorism. Pro-Wike lawmakers in Rivers State override Governor Fubara's powers to appoint local government caretakers. Tunisia, Algeria, Libya agree to cooperate in tackling illegal migration. Details shortly. Let's begin by telling you that African leaders have been tasked to form a common front in combating the root causes of terrorism on the continent. And this was during a high-level African counterterrorism summit holding in Abuja, where leaders present say terrorism impedes development and the growth of democracy. Amadine Uyi reports.
Terrorism has become a menace for countries in sub-Saharan Africa, with terrorism and violent extremism being responsible for the displacement of over 6.3 million persons across the Sahel region. Many say terrorism is having its toll on the continent.
Terrorism snaps at the very fabric of the tranquil, prosperous, and just society we seek to build for ourselves and our children.
That our continent is facing a multifaceted threat, terrorism, that we have been tirelessly combating for a number of years now, does not just threaten the institutions of our countries, not only our political regimes or our populations, it also threatens the very essence of our states.
At this African high-level meeting on counter-terrorism, attended by regional leaders, many of them say terrorism is impacting negatively on development and democracy.
The theme of this high-level African counter-terrorism meeting, strengthening regional cooperation and institution building to address the evolving threats of terrorism, is timely. It reflects the urgent need to confront the impacts of terrorism that continue to disrupt our lives.
Terrorism is a threat to international peace and security, particularly in Africa, where its impact is most felt. Daesh, Al-Qaeda and their affiliates have made some significant gains in the Sahel and are moving southward to the Gulf of Guinea.
Terror cannot coexist in the same space as democracy and good governance. Just as darkness and light cannot endure in the same room at the same time.
They call on leaders to unite to tackle the scourge of terrorism.
We must pay attention to our women and girls who bear the greatest impact of insecurity, often the victims of terrorism, who deserve our solidarity and who have a right to remedy and reparations.
While terrorism troubles us greatly at the moment, we do well by remembering terrorism is not of Africa. We must tell this imported evil that wants to bend and break us, that it shall not succeed.
Leaders here agree that a sure way to combating terrorism is addressing the root causes of the scourge. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
And to dissect this, I'm joined by a public affairs analyst, Hamed Husseini. Good morning. Glad to have you join me, Mr. Husseini.
Hello, good morning.
Yeah. Let me kick off by asking what your thoughts are on the African Terrorism Summit.
Yeah, I think it is long overdue because Africa has now become a hotbed of terrorism and potentially big power rivalry. And I think this has its own history in Africa's own, legacy of coups, that's unconstitutional change of government, and military rule, generally political instability, as well as, external conflict between sister nations within Africa. So this is very long overdue, but I doubt if we can be able to marshal the kind of alliance and provide the kind of mechanism that would actually facilitate the effective implementation of such kind of declarations.
When you say you doubt if we can, muster alliance or corporations to help tackle terrorist activities, what do you mean by that, and why do you doubt?
Yeah, so if you look at terrorism in Africa, you have to dissect it along, regional lines. So if you look at terrorism in East Africa, it is basically the threat of Al-Shabaab in Kenya. But then there's actually a conflict between Kenya and Somalia. There's another conflict between Rwanda and Uganda. And then there is also Al-Shabaab presence in all these countries, Rwanda, in, Tanzania, and there's also Ethiopia and Eritrea, they also have conflicts. And there's also the conflict between Egypt and Ethiopia over the Greater Renaissance Dam. So if you look at this, all these countries, you have at least like 6 different country, conflicts and, competitions or rivalry that's occurring in East Africa. If you go down to North Africa, you see most of the hotbed of terrorism in North Africa is usually Libya. But you can also remember also there's also a conflict between Morocco and Algeria, especially over the Sahrawi Arab, Republic. There's also, the conflict in Egypt, about in the Sinai. So you can see that even within North Africa itself, it's also difficult to even marshal the kind of alliance that you need. And then if you move down to say South Africa, yeah, South Africa is actually practically largely immune from terrorism, except with the exception of Mozambique in Cabo Delgado. And then if you go down to West Africa, Nigeria, and the Boko Haram in the Chad Basin and ISWAP. So in Nigeria also you can imagine also the kind of conflicts. Of course, there isn't much conflict because we have the multinational joint task force that brings together forces from Niger, Benin Republic, Chad, and Cameroon, and Nigeria itself. But then with the recent, change in government in Niger, there's already a change in attitude, in Niger Republic. And I don't think Niger Republic rulers today, the military junta, is actually open to, cooperating with the Nigerian government after seeing how Nigeria was, aggressively against, the coup leaders in Niger.
Okay,
so these are the kind of conflict within Africa between different countries that is going to make it difficult to implement that kind of alliance.
Okay, you talked about conflicts within the African continent. You talked about Kenya, Rwanda, Tanzania. Perhaps the first step should be conflict resolution. So then what steps would you recommend or suggest Africa as a continent takes, in helping resolve conflicts in order for us to foster cooperation to help in tackling terrorism?
So I think the step is not actually conflict. The first step is not actually conflict resolution because conflicts are actually going to occur as long as there is no one single regional superpower that is actually going to impose some kind of cost on these countries in terms of non-cooperation. So if there's not any accountability, there's not any cost on or consequences for non-cooperation, there's not any big power in Africa, say regional power in Africa, just like the US with NATO. Everyone knows that the US actually runs the show in NATO, and NATO is usually good to stay at US command. And then US has the capacity financially and militarily to impose cost on non-cooperation within the alliance. But we don't have that in Africa. And another thing is there are a lot of external foreign intervention within Africa. The France has military presence in Africa. US has military presence in Africa through the AFRICOM. Russia with Wagner is also getting entrenched. So you can imagine, even at the level of the UN Security Council, there won't be any unanimous support for Africa or for such kind of punitive actions against non-cooperation of African countries, because African countries are torn between different alliances with Russia, with China, with the US or the West. And then it is actually difficult to impose this kind of measures to say, okay, if a country does not cooperate, there are some consequences financially or militarily. We cannot be able to actually implement that. So the first thing is actually, I think, that power vacuum within Africa. So you can see now America is withdrawing, France is withdrawing, Wagner is getting entrenched, and there are other smaller countries that are actually emerging, like UAE, like Iran, like Turkey, like Israel, that are actually getting military entry in Africa and having some form of, strategic, influence on African countries. So this is all due to the power vacuum that we have in Africa. So I think for such kind of alliance to even succeed to some extent, then we need need some kind of unanimity among the major power axes within Africa. That is Nigeria, South Africa, Egypt, Ethiopia, Kenya, to some extent. If these countries can come together and agree that, okay, we can support this militarily, and then there's going to be some form of military success, but then financially and diplomatically, we have to do more.
Well, indeed, we hope Africa as a continent can come together and form a strong alliance. Thank you so much for your time on the news. Hamed Husseini, public affairs analyst, thank you once again.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Nigeria's former president, Goodluck Jonathan, has tasked members of the National Assembly to consider the integration of a national border guard and a national coast guard into the proposal bill for the establishment of state police. The former president made this known during a national dialogue on state policing, saying the current security architecture at the nation's borders are inadequate to tackle peculiar security challenges bedeviling the nation. Our correspondent, Idong Joseph, has details.
In recent years, the clamor for the establishment of state police has drawn diverse arguments, with some for and others against the proposal. While the escalating insecurity situation in the country calls for urgent action, Nigeria's House of Representatives, after passing the bill for the second reading, has convened a national dialogue to get recommendations and inputs from stakeholders to finding lasting solutions.
Let me state categorically that the House and indeed the National Assembly does not have a fixed position on this matter. Our role is to facilitate a dialogue and generate consensus.
When I set up the 2014 National Dialogue, within that period, we have a lot of challenges in the country. People were agitating so many areas. But when we set up that dialogue, one thing that the whole almost 500 delegates agreed without much ado was the issue of state police.
Nigeria's former president, Goodluck Jonathan, and the former head of state, Abdulsalami Abubakar, while sharing their experiences, urged the consideration of inputs from traditional rulers and the consideration of border guards and coastal guards into the bill.
If a stranger enters a village within hours, the village head knows about that stranger, and through their means of communication, the emir is aware.
The National Assembly, while you are debating or conducting a public hearing on the state police, these issues of National Border Force must be considered.
On the issue of state police, it is the submission of the leadership of the Nigerian police force that Nigeria is yet to mature and ready for the establishment of state-controlled police.
President Bola Tinubu, who was represented by his vice, pledged the commitment of the executive to implement the legislation when passed.
The insights we gain will inform our administration's approach to supporting legislation that not only enhances the capacity of our police force, but also strengthens the bonds of trust between law enforcement and the public.
The discussion for the abduction of state policing has always courted controversies. Stakeholders here are calling on Nigeria's National Assembly to give more attention to issues bordering on right of abuse of citizens, financing of the police, and modalities for their recruitment. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idong Joseph.
And to unpack this, I'm joined by a security expert, Inko Taria Ipailibo. Good morning. Glad to have you join me. How will you assess the statement by the Inspector General of Police that Nigeria isn't mature enough for state policing?
But we appreciate and understand the fears of the Inspector General of Police because his concerns are valid. However, the advantages of state police far outweighs his concerns. The operationally speaking, state police will ensure the effective and efficient coordination of security operations in terms of response time and the deployment of officers with understanding of the local terrain. And then if you look at it economically too, state police will provide direct employment for the locals, and it gives the leverage to combine whatever work they want to do, maybe farming with policing. So in all ramifications, the argument for state police far outweighs the concerns or the fears of the IGP. Even in terms of professionalism and specialized training, the authorities of each state police will focus their specialized training on the peculiarity of their terrain. For example, Plateau State is a mountainous state. And so when you have state police, the focus of training will be in alpine warfare. And we all know that India, for now, has the best military school for training of alpine warfare officers. So Plateau State will naturally send their officers to India for such training so that they will be able to combat whatever crime that will come through the mountainous surroundings. Then a state like River State or other South states will focus on marine or naval warfare in their specialized training. So rather than having one Nigerian police force that, at the moment, are incapable of solving the security problem, it would be better for the various states to form their state police forces and also focus on specialized training that would give us the desired results.
Let's look at the concerns raised by the IG, which is that among which is the merging of the NSCDS, and that's Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, as well as the Federal Road Safety Corps, into the police force instead of establishing state police. What are the advantages or disadvantages of this?
With all due respect to the IGP, that suggestion is laughable. NSCDC have their core duties that complement the efforts of the police force. The Nigerian Road Safety Corps, they have their core duties that also complement whatever security architecture we have in the system. So merging them does not in any way solve the current security problems we have. It will rather increase the complexity of management rather than solving any security problem.
How about the concerns of abuse of power and also human rights violation if state police were established? How can these concerns or risks be mitigated in the context of state-level law enforcement?
If at the moment there is gross abuse of power, the IGP cannot say that power is not being abused. The IGP cannot say that human rights are not being violated. So the same way we are managing the abuse of power and managing the violation of human rights will be the same way that such vices will be managed. Because if we set up state police, it does not mean that the governor has the absolute right to lord it over anybody. There is state legislation and there are other means of checks and balances that will be factored into the National Assembly in drafting a bill will have considered all those factors that will maintain a balance in event of the implementation of state police.
Now, in closing, from a security analyst's point of view, what alternative strategies or reform could be considered to address the need for effective policing while minimizing the risks associated with establishment of state police?
Well, currently, what the police force can do to address the security challenges is to co-opt, integrate the locals in policing, in the efforts of policing the various communities. And then also to partner with professionals. We, the professional security practitioners of Nigeria, we are available for discourse, we are available for dialogue and then brainstorming. So if they partner with us, we have strategies that could help the situation as it is at the moment.
Indeed, we hope we can get to that point where security insecurity rather is tackled in Nigeria. Well, thank you so much for your insight on the news. Inko Taria Ipalibo, security expert. Thank you once again.
Thank you for having me.
You're live with News Central TV. Let's take a short break. Stay with us. Thank you for staying tuned. The Rivers State House of Assembly on Monday passed the Rivers State Local Government Bill into law by overriding the assent of Governor Fubara. The new law, among others, strips the governor of the power to appoint caretaker committees for local government areas. It also makes it mandatory for the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission to conduct elections before the expiration of the tenure of local government chairmen. The new law also provides that if local government election cannot hold for any reason, the tenure of the sitting chairman would be extended by not longer than 6 months. This is the 6th time the House will be overriding the governor to enact laws. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission will be arraigning the former governor of Kogi State, Yaya Bello, at the Federal High Court. Despite the Court of Appeal not sitting on the appeal, it filed to vacate the restraining order not to arrest the former governor by the Kogi State High Court. The commission is also concluding plans to getting a Binance executive that fled to Kenya be brought back to Nigeria and be arraigned, an answer to the alleged money laundering. Marvelous Obamanu gives us an update on the 2 cases currently being pushed by the Anti-Graft Agency.
Reports available say that the Kenya Police Service has arrested fleeing Binance executive Nadeem Anjarwalla as moves intensify to extradite him back to Nigeria within the week. Tax evasion, currency speculation, and money laundering to the tune of about $35 million are counts the Commission has against Binance Holdings Limited, Tigran Gambaryan, and Nadeem Anjarwalla, the company's chief executives. Also, in another development, the commission is seeking to arraign the former governor of Kogi State, Yaya Bello, on 19-count charge bordering on money laundering, breach of trust, and misappropriation of funds to the tune of about 80.2 billion naira. Last Wednesday, the EFCC got a warrant of arrest from the Federal High Court in Abuja, however, was unable to arrest Bello at his residence in the nation's capital. This resulted to the inability of the former governor to be arraigned the next day, thus the adjournment of the case by Justice Emeka Nwite to April the 23rd. The Court of Appeal is supposed to hear an appeal filed by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission against a restraining order by a Kogi State High Court, barring the Commission from arresting or detaining the former governor of the state, Yaya Bello. Now, judges are having their annual conference, and that is why the case did not go through. Recall that the trial judge at the Federal High Court had already slated tomorrow, which is Tuesday the 23rd, for arraignment, and we do not know if the development will affect the arraignment or not. In Abuja, for News Central, Marvelous Obomman.
The All Progressives Congress Governorship Primary Appeal Committee has commenced work as the committee received petitions from 3 among the aspirants. The immediate past governor of Bauchi State, Mohammed Abubakar San, who is the chairman of the 5-person committee, urged all aspirants who have any petition to file to approach the committee as the party secretariat to submit their petitions. Addressing newsmen in Akure on Monday, the senior advocate assured that the committee would be thorough and fair in handling all the petitions they received.
Of the appeal committee set up by the headquarters of the party to receive and consider any appeals that come up after the events of the weekend, that is, the conduct of the governorship primaries election in the state. The members of the committee with me are to my immediate left is Dr. Jamilu Isiaka, governor, and to his immediate left, IG Honorable Patrick.
The national chairman of Nigeria's opposition party, the National Rescue Movement, has urged aggrieved members of the party to sheath the swords and embrace peace over the control of the party's leadership. This followed a ruling by the Federal High Court in Abuja, which dismissed a suit filed by aggrieved members of the party seeking to sack the national chairman. The court ruled affirming Isaac Ude as a substantive national chairman of the National Rescue Party.
That the party did not perform well at the last general election, and they are now ascribing it to their national chairman. And it's not part of the disciplinary actions under the constitution of the party. So they came to court, and they have been parading themselves, writing to INEC that INEC should see them as they purported to have appointed an acting national chairman and be acting illegally. They themselves came to court and sued INEC and the national chairman. And by God's grace, today, the Federal High Court, Honorable Justice James Kolawole Omotosho, delivered judgment, dismissed their suit, and deprecated them for undemocratic actions.
Inasmuch as all the actions they took at the meeting was declared invalid outrightly. So the matter permanently should be laid to rest, and that is the condition of the matter.
Few queues have resurfaced in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, as there is a current business boom for black market sellers. News Central Television paid a visit to some petrol stations within the capital, where some drivers expressed frustration over their inability to buy fuel. Our correspondent, Marvelous Obomano, tells us more.
This is not the first time the nation's capital is witnessing long fuel queues. In 2024, there have been reported cases of residents spending long hours to get fuel, either for lack of the product or hoarding the product by independent marketers subsequent to a price increment. As Nigerians struggle to get the premium motor spirit, black market sellers are using the opportunity to make a kill by increasing the price of the product.
Okay, 15 liters, how much?
10,000, 12,000, Here at Total Filling Station, you can see how some Nigerians are struggling just to get the product. Some of them say it is a shame that a rich oil-producing country like Nigeria, yet they are still seeing pockets of fuel queue here and there. Some of them say they'll spend 3 to 4 hours just to get the premium motor spirit, and that this has also affected their business activity of the day.
I was here early hours this morning, so I saw a very long queue. So I don't know, almost 90% of fuel stations in the of Abuja, they are all shut down. So I've been here now for the past 3 hours. Same all over. Most of the fuel stations are not on. You can see like the ones opposite MMPC towers. Even, there are plenty of queues here. Coming to this place now, the same thing. Then you can see now we are moving around to see if you can get from Gallon, and it's very difficult.
I'm suspecting maybe there are going to be a slight price adjustment, because aside that, I don't see any other reason why that should be.
Some of them express frustration over their inability to get the product and wonder why a country rich in oil is still facing such challenges.
It's a bad moment to us as a nation, and as a citizen, as an oil producing nation, queuing for a fuel, I should label it a taboo to Nigeria as a country, and it's a shame.
How can Nigeria be an oil producing nation? Fuel subsidy is still out, and we're still going through this. It's alarming.
Although the cause of the fuel queue is still unknown, adding the price increment to the hardship being faced by citizens further increases their burden. In Abuja for News Central, Marvelous Obomman.
Nigerians have been tasked to embrace diversity and celebrate its differences of gender and religion. This is as interfaith experts converge on the nation's capital, Abuja, saying the inability to manage diversity will affect Nigeria's growth and development. Amadine Uyi tells us more.
Available data reveals that in 2022, Nigeria's female population amounted to approximately 108.09 million, while the male population amounted to almost 110.45 million persons. Despite the fact that this gives an approximate 50 to 50% population ratio, experts say the lack of inclusion of women in governance is proof of Nigeria's inability to manage diversity.
Since the colonial times, even after decolonization, Nigeria has a challenge with managing diversity, in making sure that people have equal access to power, to privilege, to resources across this country.
As interfaith experts converge on Abuja to appraise the practice of freedom of religion of belief in the country, including gender inclusivity, they say Nigeria must put in efforts to end its inability to manage diversity as it is affecting the nation's development.
Our scriptures have bring it out boldly. The God says in the Quran, we created you, all you people. He begins by saying, all you people, not all you Christian or Muslims or traditional worshippers. He said, all you people. That means everyone. We created you from males and females from different tribes and nations so that you can come together and work to understand each other and work into your values and norms so that you can grow.
Managing diversity has to do with the rule of law, that all of us are equal, number one, before the law, and that there's one set of constitution that guides all of us. So once you end the culture of impunity, once you are able to demonstrate that everything should be based on merit, not who you know, where you come from, the tribe you belong to, the religion you belong to.
They also call on government and citizens to unite and celebrate their differences.
The biggest call to Nigerians is to understand that religion is not just about where you are born today or what you found yourself in. You should also see religion as a right. And when you are practicing your religion, you should respect the rights of other people also who practice religion other than your own.
Let us reverse. Let us come back and work like Nigerians, not like Muslims or Christians or religion, international or African worshippers. Let's work like human beings. That's what matters.
We need to do more than manage it. We need to celebrate it. Because diversity is a given. You're different, I'm different, she's different. But plurality should be the word that we need to learn to use. Plurality means we come together and we celebrate their differences.
In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
Coming up, Tunisia, Algeria, Liberia agreed to advance cooperation. We have details after the break. Stay with us. The news continues in North Africa, where leaders of Tunisia, Algeria, and Libya agreed on Monday to work together to fight irregular immigration and speed up electricity interconnection. Tunisian President Kais Saied, Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune, and President of Libyan Presidency Council, Mohamed Al-Menfi, voiced the consensus in a joint declaration at the end of the first consultative meeting among the leaders of the three neighboring countries. In the declaration, the leaders agreed to form joint working groups to oversee security along the common border and fight against irregular immigration and all forms of organized crime.
تمسك الدول الثلاث باستقلال القرار الوطني النابع من إرادة شعوبها وحرصها على إقامة علاقات مع البلدان والتجمعات الإقليمية والدولية الأخرى في إطار الاحترام المتبادل وعدم التدخل في الشؤون الداخلية وتمسكها بنظام دولي متعدد الأطراف بدعم التعاون والتضامن والعدل والإنصاف في العلاقات الدولية ومساواة الجميع أمام القانون الدولي. اتفق القادة الثلاث على تكوين فرق عمل مشتركة يعهد له إحكام تنسيق الجهود لتأمين حماية أمن الحدود المشتركة من مخاطر وتبعات الهجرة غير النظامية وغيرها من مظاهر الجريمة المنظمة ووضع مقاربة تنموية تشاركية لتنمية هذه المناطق مع العمل على توحيد المواقف والخطاب في التعاطي مع مختلف الدول الشقيقة والصديقة المعنية بظاهرة الهجرة غير النظامية في شمال البحر المتوسط والدول.
Central African Republic President Faustin Archange Touadéa has declared 3 days of national mourning on Monday for victims of a riverboat disaster, one of the country's deadliest. Authorities have said 58 bodies were retrieved from the Mpoko River and the capital Bangui after the vessel capsized on Friday as it was taking people to the funeral of the village chief. According to witnesses, the wooden boat was carrying more than 300 people, some standing. Search operations are continuing and the provisional death toll could rise. A presidential decree broadcast on state radio on Monday said 3 days of national mourning would be observed in memory of the victims of the tragic incident. Still ahead, Venezuela rejects U.S. decision to reimpose sanctions on oil. We have details shortly. Stay with us. Venezuela rejects the U.S. decision to reimpose sanctions on Venezuelan oil and accuses them of trying to damage the electoral process for the upcoming July 28th elections. Foreign Minister Yvonne Gill says at a press conference in Caracas that Washington is damaging any attempts to normalize bilateral relations.
El gobierno de la República Bolivariana de Venezuela rechaza una vez más la pretensión del gobierno de los Estados Unidos de América de monitorear, tutelar, controlar y manipular la industria petrolera venezolana a través de su política ilegal de imposición de medidas coercitivas y licencias. Estados Unidos no le está haciendo daño a una Venezuela independiente que ha aprendido a sobreponerse a sus agresiones. Por el contrario, le hace daño a cualquier intento de normalización de las relaciones bilaterales, al mercado energético internacional, que se ve severamente afectado hoy en día por los impulsos belicistas del Washington. Una vez más, Estados Unidos incumple su palabra y pretende en vano, con presiones económicas y con la violencia de sectores políticos minoritarios de la extrema derecha que reciben su apoyo, perjudicar el proceso electoral.
And for business news, let's connect with the business desk.
Nigeria stood out during the recent World Bank and International Monetary Fund spring meetings, garnering praise from global economic leaders for its proactive measures in the face of international challenges. Nigeria's Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister for the Economy, Wale Edun, who also chairs the African Caucus, emphasized the nation's pivotal role in advocating for Africa's economic interests on the global stage, leading to the International Monetary Fund and World Bank commending Nigeria's robust efforts, citing the tightening of monetary policies and subsequent upward revision of the country's growth forecast to 3.4% this year as a testament to the effectiveness of the government's economic strategies. The 2024 spring meetings held amidst a backdrop of persistent inflation and geopolitical tensions underscored Nigeria's ascent as a regional trailblazer in fostering sustainable economic practices. Now, despite the Dangote Petroleum Refinery's recent announcement of 1,000 naira per litre price tag, automotive gas oil, also called diesel, still sold for between 1,300 naira and 1,450 naira nationwide. Some dealers said even at that price, they had not received supplies from the Dangote refinery, hence the reason they continue to sell for a high price. In a survey in Osun, Lagos, and the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, oil marketers claimed that the Dangote Petroleum Refinery was not supplying diesel, stalling the announcement of a price adjustment. About 3 weeks ago, Dangote announced a 30% reduction in diesel price from the previous market price of 1,600 naira per litre to 1,200 naira, granting oil marketers demanding a lower price their wish. Last week, the price was further reduced, pegged at 1,000 naira. And finally, African National Congress President Cyril Ramaphosa has described as impressive news that South Africa has reclaimed its spot as the biggest economy in Africa. Nigeria's economy was ranked as the continent's largest in 2022. Egypt, which held the top position in 2023, is projected to fall to second behind South Africa after a series of currency devaluations. The reclaiming of the top spot in Africa's economy is a significant achievement for South Africa, and Ramaphosa said his administration remains committed to addressing the country's challenges and building on this success. And that's all on Business News. Many thanks for watching. Do stay with us. More stories will come your way in a bit.
And now to sports stories. Nigeria Super Falcons goalkeeper Chiamaka Nnadozie is up for the Best Goalkeeper of the Season award in the Women's Top Flight League in France. Nnadozie has been nominated for the individual accolade for the second consecutive time. The Nigeria international has established herself as one of the best goalkeepers in the French top flight. The 22-year-old has once again made a big impression for Paris FC on the domestic scene, as well as the UEFA Women's Champions League. Al Ahly SC passed their toughest tests of the first round of the 2024 NAL Conference on Monday night after a hard-fought 85-79 win against Bangui Sporting Club. It was Al Ahly SC's smallest winning margin since beating Al Ahly 98-86 and City Oilers 99-76. The bar debutant Bangui club pushed the reigning champions to the limits for most of the game. Al Ahly SC never led by more than 10 points, and Bangui SC even took a 1-point lead with 4.45 minutes left, thanks to a 3-point shot from rising star Thierry Dallan. Despite a second loss in 3 games, Bangui SC guard Kurt Curry remains upbeat about his team's playoff aspirations.
Sinking two there. Here's Prince Ali going for a big long-range basket. That is how to do it. The Prince is a king here in Cairo. Bangui got such long legs, isn't he? Big strides enables him to make those moving, slaloming moves. From Prince Ali. You've got to play the game.
Inter Milan were crowned Serie A champions for the 20th time after a 2-1 win against rivals AC Milan, creating an unassailable lead at the top of the league with their 6th straight derby victory. Goals from Francesco Acerbi and Marcus Thuram gave Inter a 17-point advantage over closest challengers Milan and secured their 20th league crown with 5 matches of the season remaining. Simone Inzaghi won the first league title of his managerial career as the San Siro were a clutch of Inter's away fans, and the 75,000 crowd roared in delight at the final whistle.
Bellissima, un'emozione troppo grande, l'Inter campione d'Italia, il 20° scudetto, è stata un'emozione bellissima. Poi vincere contro il Milan è triplicato, un'emozione troppo grande, troppo grande.
No, non me lo aspettavo, però ero convinto che in qualche modo l'avremmo vinto stasera, e vincerlo con un po' di suspense è più bello.
I giocatori comunque sono stati incredibili, poi con mio fratello sempre allo stadio con l'abbonamento.
Sempre allo stadio, c'eravamo anche all'andata.
Sempre, infatti poi al derby incredibile.
And that's all on the news at this hour. But before we go, let's take a look again at some of the major stories. African leaders have pledged to tackle root causes of terrorism. Pro-Wike lawmakers in Rivers State have overridden Governor Fubara's powers to appoint local government caretakers. We also told you that Tunisia, Algeria, and Libya have agreed to cooperate in tackling illegal immigration. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen and follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live on DSTV, channel 422, Star Times, channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Adebola Adeduba.